So welcome. For those of you just tuning in, I apologize. We have a slight change in plans. Brian Romilly had a scheduling conflict that popped up that he couldn't get out of. So we're going to go ahead today with an alternate topic that I planned on bringing up. So with that in mind, let's go through the usual rules because this is definitely going to be an all play today. I am going to be chatting with you a lot and I've got a lot to share for some research I've been doing. Welcome to Town Hall 31, September 15th, 2020. The world's on fire. That's what we're going to call this version of it. So Mike, are you seeing the fires or how's the smoke or how's
the smoke is still lingering. Yeah, I went for a bike ride a few days ago and I totally forgot about the fires and halfway through the ride, my throat was like just burnt. I mean, talking about fire, it was burning. It was like I was in pain. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, and then I take a look up and I look at the sun and it's orangish, pinkish because of the haze in the sky, because of all the smoke that's in the sky. And in San Diego, and we're not getting the brunt of it. It's everything north of us. It's north of LA, San Francisco. Now it's in Oregon and Washington. And it's as bad as I've ever seen it. And it's just affecting the entire West Coast. And every morning you get up and like, you pray that the air is going to be cleaner and you look outside and you can just kind of see this yellow haze in the air. And it's not good. And then you go out to your car and there's all these little white flecks all over the car. And like, it didn't snow last night. Oh, wait, that's ash from the fires that's falling on your car and everywhere else. So it's just it's very interesting times out here. So we're staying indoors. So we're wearing a mask, not only for the COVID, but we're wearing a mask not to breathe in a lung full of ash and smoke as well. So the masks are serving a dual purpose these days now.
Kind of like, we're back on lockdown.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy times. So yeah, we have to stay indoors.
We know a lot of Canadians that are in the path of that. And if any of you are on that call are affected by that, our heart goes out to you. It's a horrible thing. And so. Yeah.
And to segue on that, John, I just interviewed Gigi Highland this morning on another topic, but we did address CU Aid, and CU Aid is obviously their kind of emergency fund, if you will, that it gets funneled to credit unions and stuff who are hit by hurricanes and obviously fires and all sorts of natural disasters. And so
we have
talking about that. Hey, and if you want to contribute, yeah, exactly. So I
hope they got enough to go around.
Yeah, I checked his schedule. He's right.
Okay.
Today's Wednesday. It's his early day.
Good.
Nope. I think we have, we got to mute somebody there, Melissa, if you don't mind. So yeah, that's really scary. And CU Aid is definitely something. Mike, is that an episode that's out already, or is that something that's?
I just interviewed her this morning, and so that will probably air, if not tomorrow, the next day.
Great. We'll make sure we get a link out to everybody on that. Well, let's real quickly thank our sponsors. We're gonna start by thanking CUNA. I am super excited. We're rolling up on the Tech and Ops and Member Experience Council coming up. It's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be an online virtual piece, but the way they've done it is pretty impressive. I'm really excited to participate in that. I think you're going to be able to do all the same things and some things even better. It's all going to be about how much effort you put into it. And I'm excited. It's coming up September 29th of this month. If you haven't signed up, please do. There's going to be some really great speakers. There's 24 informative sessions on member experience, security, operations pieces, all those sorts of things. And the same great speakers that you're going to have in between. The session speakers, those inspirational guys, the ones where we all go to the big room in between the session breakouts. They've got the vendors. They've even figured out how to do the speed rounds, which I'll be working with online as well. So 12 great, brand new, innovative products. So for those of you that haven't signed up, please do. It's going to be fun. There'll be more information coming out about that. Member Pass, some very exciting stuff happening with Member Pass. We're very keen. I was speaking with last week's guest, Dave Birch. Was it last week he was on, or was that Roger? God, my days are running together. I've been in this basement.
It's Roger.
Yeah. Roger. Previous to that was David Birch about identity and Member Pass and pulling those two things together. And So we've got a meeting coming up with him. He really loved, his concept of claims and the CU Ledger platform, and he asked about that after the meeting. And so we're going to bring him in and have him talk with Julie, who I see is on the call, and John Ainsworth and that group. So that's very exciting.
Cool.
Obviously Big, for those of you that don't know, Big is a consulting group. We also have a product called Five. You're more than welcome to reach out to us. Lately, we've been doing a lot of consulting around some of the topics I'm going to talk about today, helping people to deal with a lot of kind of reorganizing their staff and how collaboration works remotely, looking at their digital governance, those sorts of things. So that's been pretty powerful. And then there's this last one. I don't know who this guy is, some sort of fly-by-night dude. Mike Lawson. Mike, what do you do?
What do I do? I am the host of CU Broadcast, the industry's online video talk show, where I talk to cool people like John Best and Kevin Sarber and whole slew of other folks out there, just talking about industry issues, trends, events, all sorts of cool stuff out there, and just generally making the industry that much better each and every day.
And you do. That is true.
We try.
All right, so let's
you.
move on. Obviously, they know who we are. Let's keep going here. We'll skip that. I want to get into it here. So let's just jump right in. Okay. So working from home. As we've been doing work with other credit unions, it's come to my attention that we're heading into budget season, and a lot of credit unions are sort of, they haven't made a decision whether work from home is permanent or not. And even if it's, or even the extent of it and how long it's going to go. This is a pretty funny picture here. I don't know if anybody saw this, but this lady posted a tweet and it kind of went viral of her work at home experience. She did a CNN interview. I don't know how many other people are working like this, but I love that she has her laptop on a chair. Secretly, I think that's what Mike's area looks like.
It is almost identical.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see everybody's work at home type area, but it's really difficult for parents, without a doubt. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to come back to work or want to deal with school, and this is just a big problem that we're running into. So, there's a lot to unpack here. So I'm going to start off by. I think we have another slide, don't we? Yeah, we do. So I'm going to start off by just talking a little bit about, there was an interview that came out last night, or was it yesterday, from the CEO of Netflix. And the gist of the interview was that marriage counseling had taught him to be a better CEO, blah, blah, blah. But one of the statements he made in that's more important is he said Netflix will not be, permanently work at home. That as soon as they can, he'll be bringing everybody back into the workplace. And one of his reasonings for that was to basically delineate work from home life. The idea that when, and I think a lot of people are starting to experience this. Those of us that have worked from home for years already know this, which is those two really bleed together when, if you don't figure out how to do it, and some people it's very difficult for, it takes years to sort of master it. So that was one approach, right? Then Google continues to extend their work from home and has even made a couple statements that certain departments and certain sections are just never coming back. Okay, that's interesting. Twitter said the same thing. And then you've got this, this is an article that came out in June that did a poll. 67% of companies expect work from home to be a permanent or long lasting. But let's talk about quickly, before we get into the discussion here, the ramifications for this. So the first one is this. I want to talk about budgeting. So you're coming up on your budgeting. And there's a lot of folks who are working on various things for their budgeting in their digital domain because of the needs of digital. But there's also a lot of decisions that will be made based on the products and the things you do that are related to whether or not people are working from home or working, in the office. And to give you an example, I was doing some research on help desks. So help desk calls are up by 25-30% across all institutions, their internal technical help desks. The reason? Because the work at home environment is different. Now, and that, by the way, is after the evening out. Originally, they were up like 75%, but after everybody kind of settled in, they haven't gone back down to normal. They still are 25% from where they were. So that's one aspect of budgeting. Do you need to budget more people for your help desk, or different kinds of people, or do you need software, or is there third parties that specialize in people working from home? So that's one outcome of this. Another outcome is how you design and set up your networks. There are a lot of people, because of the pending security threats that are out there, that this was a year, and next year, given some of the new technology, that where they were going to upgrade a substantial amount of their security infrastructure, usually around some of the newest artificial intelligence, machine intelligence type learning products that will help protect you, which are basically the building of the wall, right? We build a 10-foot wall, they bring an 11-foot ladder. We were always trying to build our wall up, takes them a while to build a new ladder. So with that in mind, there were a lot of people who were moving in that direction. But when you have employees spread out and all at home, you go from this castle mentality of, hey, I've got this corporate castle I have to protect. And I do get to sort of feel good that the devices that are sitting inside my castle have a certain amount of security. But when they're outside of your castle in smaller castle homes that you don't really control, it's much more complex to do that. And so, while I believe that all of us, and I want to say hats off to everyone that accomplished this in such a short amount of time, but I have to think, and we're going to get around to the discussion on this, I have to think that there were corners cut. There's just no way there was. And in my interviews with infrastructure specialists at credit unions, with the help desk support, with people in charge of security, I am confirming that. I'm confirming that, hey, we had to make some decisions, and this is where we landed. So with that in mind, they're starting to put together budgets, but when you ask them, okay, well, what are you going to do? They're sort of uncertain because management really hasn't taken this up. And for most people, this is going to go all the way to the board as a decision process. This isn't something that I don't think is going to be left to management. And I feel like that's something that's going to be pushed in that direction. So the issues I think that I wanted to bring out there for people to sort of chew on a bit and get some feedback on were, one, the support issue. And by the way, just some of the things I've heard are, people were looking at building a new building, and then they decided not to because they're just going to stick with the work from home, and so it left them a lot of space. The hybrid model, you get to work from home. But then the other thing that I'm hearing a lot is they think there's another pandemic behind this, and that we've entered the age of the pandemic, and as a result, that we're not going to be able to sort of break out of this anytime soon. But as we look at these kind of decision-making processes, I'm curious to know where people stand in this call and what we're doing. And Mike, just before I get out to people, you want to add anything, or what have you heard? And by the way, I'm doing a full podcast and a blog on this, and I've been digging out statistics and working on it and trying to figure out even advice. But what you got, Mike?
Yeah, I've talked to a number of credit unions on this as well. And what I've heard generally is that they're going to have a hybrid approach. There'll be some departments who will be staying home, and the other departments that are required to come into work, they're going to have kind of an, 3 days on, 3 days off type of thing. Some people will come in, some people stay home, that type of thing. So that's what I've heard. But what's happening is it's kind of like we're going to take it one day at a time type thing and see what happens, because we're still in these uncertain times. Like you said, John, there could be another pandemic. There could be round 2 of this coming in the fall and the winter. So a lot of people are kind of waiting to see what happens with that, whether people are going to come back permanently, the vaccine, how is that going to help? There's so many, ramifications or parameters or, varying things out there that people are still weighing on that we just don't know yet. So right now it's what I've heard is the hybrid approach. Like that was one of the options that you talked about, are people going to stay home? Are they going to come in?
So if the pandemic were not right now, if it just didn't exist and all we have was the forest fires or the wildfires, would that be something you think that they would say stay home? I mean, we've seen up in Oregon in the groups we're talking to, and I'll throw to Harry, that they're saying, look, just don't even go outside, that the air quality is so bad that, I mean, it's almost like it has the same effect on what we're doing as the pandemic.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
would we-
exactly. Yeah. Stay home. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see this, but on my weather thing, it says air is unhealthy for sensitive people on my
When
weather
they say
thing.
sensitive,
So
they mean people who cry a lot and like it'll
yeah,
yell
yeah,
and
very
stuff.
emotional
Or,
people. So,
I
it's
got
like
you.
people who have, asthma
Yeah,
and
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that. I mean, even when I went on
COPD.
my bike ride, the other morning, I felt it, and
Yeah.
you can see it in the air. It's crazy. So yeah, that's, stay home. If you don't have to go outside, don't do it. And Kevin,
No,
Kevin might be experiencing the same thing. He's out
no,
here
he
as well,
said
right?
it's fine where he is. It's weird. He said he's all
Oh,
good.
really?
Go ahead.
Lucky
Go ahead,
you.
Kevin.
Yeah, we're definitely experiencing it. Same thing with the ashes and that type of stuff. John, I sent you a picture. I don't know if you got it yesterday of Newport, the boardwalk at Newport. The combination of the fog and the smoke,
Mhm.
you couldn't see 25 feet in front of you.
Yep. Yep.
So it was.
And this is where
it's
this is a
something.
personal picture taken by you.
It's actually was something posted. There it is.
Oh, wow.
So that's the sun.
Yeah. What
Oh,
time was
that's-
this taken? You think?
I'm sorry.
What time was this taken? You think the sun looks like it's
It
about?
was about 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it's a morning
That's
shot.
ridiculous. Wow.
That's what it looked like the other day when I rode my bike. I was like, oh my gosh, crazy.
That's crazy. And then Kevin, you were saying.
And just for comparison, there's a term called AQI, which is the air quality index, and it goes from, the scale is from 0 to 500, and that air quality in Southern California, in that area, was around 120, 150, depending on the time of day. My sister, who lives outside of Spokane, her air quality index was 480 something the other day.
gosh.
So that, I mean, so bad that they were being told, don't go out unless you absolutely have to, and recommending that people wear masks if they're going to go out.
Yeah, so I guess my point on that, to bring it all the way around, is it doesn't appear that just the pandemic could sort of affect us that way. So let's, I'm going to start with Tom. Tom, you have to, I mean, you're the smaller organization. The branches aren't really a problem for you, but you, as I remember from, coming on site and being there with you, you have most of your people that were coming into work. I mean, you kind of are a team guy. You like to see your people. You like to walk around. What are your thoughts here? And introduce yourself. I know most people know you, but if you don't mind, do the usual.
Guys, Tom O'Shea, CEO of Aspire Federal Credit Union in beautiful Clark, New Jersey. We're about 40 minutes by train from Midtown Manhattan. I was watching the news last night, and they were showing the California wildfires impacting our air all the way over here
right.
on the other side of the country. And when I look out the window, there's this upper level haze in the sky, but the weather otherwise is perfect. So this is the whole northern half of the country is experiencing this drift of these clouds coming across.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It really is crazy. But to your question, one of the things that we do a lot of scenario planning, disaster tabletops and planning. And we have plans that we think are pretty good, pretty tight after doing them year after year after year. And one thing we found after Superstorm Sandy that hit out here in 2012, the plan immediately went out the window, because the thing we hadn't considered was the impact on their families to any of these types of incidents. And that became number one, obviously.
Right.
But we're thinking, people will come in, we'll have shifts. And they were like, I'm not doing anything until I know what's happening with my kids, what's happening with my family, my parents and so on. And we're in a similar boat today where we'd like to bring people back, but until we know what's happening with the kids in school and out here, schools that had reopened, a lot of them are turning back to going online because they're starting to see some pickup, and they just want to nip it. We've really shut down out here, and they really want to nip it in the bud. So they're taking very draconian measures to say, you know what, we got one kid or some, we're pulling back. If the kid walked into school without a mask, if the teacher said they were with somebody who was with somebody, they can't go to school. So, until we know where all this is going to come in, and I really think it's going to take a vaccine to get people comfortable, which could be another year before it's like deployed to people. I mean, get vaccines, but it's going to take a while to produce it and to get it from the most at-risk groups to those that are least at risk. And, we don't know what's happening, but I think because we are knowledge workers, we're not building, widgets and all,
Sure.
that we're far more flexible and we can maintain our businesses far more easily than a factory where they're going to produce a car or, an appliance or something like that. So I think it's a key of just making sure that, all the networks are set up and you've got the security in place and the oversight and evolving that thinking from being on-site to being remote. And that's probably the biggest thing we're struggling with is how do you monitor somebody's use of a computer and access to your confidential member information when they're not in front of you.
Yeah.
So, there's other tools that we have to consider to do that.
I'll share something kind of cool. And while I share this, I want to ask you a question. So have you had the conversation with your board and what are their thoughts?
From the board level, generally speaking, the conversation has been around, we have to bring in the tools that we can afford to bring in that are going to give us the biggest bang for the buck. So like you get in a car, you put on a seatbelt. You don't put on a helmet and shoulder pads and, and sit in a rubber room. There's going to be certain leakage. There's going to be certain access that you're going to have to trust people on. But we can, there's only so much we can do. And we have to just figure out what the most effective way is. And some of it's just telling people you're watching, regardless of what you're doing, tell them you're watching them, and we always have your camera on, we control that computer. It's a corporate computer. We're always watching you.
Yeah, for sure. So this is something just to share that you might be interested in, everybody might be interested in. It's a product that we used when we first started working from home. And what it does is about every X amount of minutes, it takes a screenshot. And then any manager, whoever can go in and see a diary. I don't suggest this one because the screenshots are not stored on your site, but there are products out there that Microsoft and others have that you can use where it'd be secure, because I don't want a bunch of screenshots of member information out there for those doing that work, but there are ways to handle that. And there are products like this. I haven't done a deep dive, but when we were working with groups out of India and other areas where I really wanted to monitor their work to see, not so much of whether they were working, but what I found was this was really valuable to go, oh my God, this guy's going down a way wrong road. Let me stop him before he gets, to the end and tries to deliver me it's almost like an agile way of working if you could look over the shoulder of everyone. But it's a really good product and it captures everything on the screen. So just something like that.
Yeah, we're doing a lot more monitoring call logs, reviewing call logs to see, all right, you were here 8 hours and she was here 8 hours. Are you seeing a similar volume of calls and call time and all? Loan sales consultants, is the productivity where you expect it to be? Looking for inconsistencies across the spectrum to ensure that people are there. And we accept that there are going to be times during the day, if you've got small children, that you're going to be out of pocket, that you're just not going to be able to help working with us.
Yeah, it's not a contiguous 8 hours anymore.
No, exactly.
Yeah, given that lady's picture, for sure.
And our members are in the same boat, so having our staff flexibility, take advantage of it. If you can't work 9 to 5, well, maybe you can work 8 to 10, 1 to 4, and then 6 to 8 at night. We can take advantage of it that way to help manage call volumes and service and maintain service levels.
The other thing I'd be interested in too is if we polled the staff, would they want to come back to work? I don't know. I think we all assume that the answer is no, but I don't know that that's true.
Well, some of them have already murdered their spouse, so they're okay at home.
Once you've done that, you're already good. Yeah. Once you've gone through the trouble of burying the body, then yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you mine and then we can poll the audience too. But we have a mix. We have some people that definitely want to come back. Others that just don't see a path back at this point.
Yeah.
Because of their family situation.
And I want to go back to your widget comment. You know, in your case, you're right, but there are a lot of people who run their own in clearing. You know, and that, you know, Kevin, that was one of your gigs there. That's not something that you can ever do from home, is it?
You know, it's gotten much more electronic, but you still have to have hands-on. Anything, you know.
I mean, I'll sign up if they're going to bring me all those buckets of cash I used to see to my house. Do I just got to count them or something? Is it 2 for John, 1 for the credit union, something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite story about the you know, similar to the working at home thing, and Tom was talking about how you track productivity and those type of things was, you know, we used to watch Instant Messenger all the time to see people in and out. So, you know, you could say, you know, what were you doing? You were, you know, you're away from your desk for 2 hours. So our ingenious programmers wrote a little program that simulated the mouse moving so that the PC never went, the Instant Messenger app never went to away. It looked busy all the time.
Yeah, Tom just did
beware
that
of
right
any
now.
tracking tool that can be outsmarted.
Well, it's like Tom, right? If you were going by Tom's light as to whether he was actually there, you would have to say, no, he didn't move for 2 hours. He's either dead or not in that room. But yeah, I mean, you're right. That's why I do like the screen tracking device, and I think it has value from a lot of other perspectives. There also is maybe some RPA. Like if I was going to do RPA analysis, that if you combine that with the screen tracking, man, I could probably, you gave me a month worth of those from some people, I bet I could find 1,000 things to make your life better just from that using RPA.
The other thing we may need to do is change our compensation plan. So where we are, let's say call center, we're paying people by the hour. We may, because of the upset within their household, we may have to change that to by talk time.
Yeah.
You know, something like that to reflect a better, you know, more equitable distribution. Because you'll have people, older people that don't have kids at home that can sit down and pound out 8-10 hours, no problem. But then you've got a lot of people that can't, and you want to be equitable in your compensation plan. So we may need to revisit that approach to paying people.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. So I'm gonna, Tom, I appreciate that. I'm gonna swing it over because I want to hear from Gary. So Gary is a large credit union that has other issues with getting into their branches that aren't necessarily fire related or pandemic related. He's been having to fight, you know, protesters and everything else in that area. So Gary, how privy are you to that sort of conversation that's going on in your organization? And by the way, welcome, and maybe give everybody a quick background on your lot in life.
Can you hear me? I clicked on, okay, there we go.
Yeah, Gary, just fine.
Yeah. So here's the latest wildfire map
Gosh.
for Oregon. I don't know if you can see it.
Wow. Oregon is just literally crazy.
The air quality thing, it's close to 500. It's been that way for almost a week and a half. We had to close our in-branch lobby traffic. We kept the drive-ups open. Just yesterday, we reopened the indoor lobbies of our branches because the air quality improved a little bit. What they're saying is we're going to get a bunch of rain starting tomorrow, and that should start to clear out. But Clackamas County, which is on the east side of Portland, the entire county was in evacuation zone at different levels. Level 1 was you had to start to get ready. Level 2 was get ready to leave. And level 3 was evacuate now, do not wait, just leave immediately. So it's horrible. I live in by where it says Newburgh. I live in a town called Tigard. Actually, it's just below Beaverton. There is a fire that was in Newburgh. There was a fire that was in Sherwood. So our air quality here has just been horrendous. That
I mean,
big fire.
this looks small on the map, but this is like 5 or 10 Central Parks, I think, or something. They said
That's
it's like
huge
ridiculous.
right there. Yeah.
Correct. That is, it doesn't show the county, but that is encompassing almost an entire county. And Clackamas County is huge. It includes Mount Hood.
Yeah, maybe why we don't have, do we have Andrew on this call? I don't see him. And we've been working with some other credit unions out that way who had to reschedule some things with us.
Yeah. And the other, if you scroll down a little bit, the town of Medford, basically the whole town of Medford and around Medford. That's
there?
in Springfield.
Southern Oregon?
It's further down by Klamath Falls, over to the right of Klamath Falls. That big fire
Mm-hmm.
over there to the right.
Oh,
A
wow.
little bit. Oh, there's Medford. Yeah. So it's north of Medford. So it's all basically the entire state. It's just amazing. So yeah, they took a break from the riots for just a couple days, but they've started the riots back up again. So we're reevaluating. You know, you've been to our office, John. You've been to my office. We're
Many
right in the
times.
heart of downtown. We're kitty corner to City Hall, which has been attacked multiple times during this last 3 months. So we're reevaluating our headquarters, not only from a work from home perspective, but do we want to be downtown perspective?
So, but what's the general thinking right now as it relates to work from home?
So work from home right now, we are, because of COVID, not necessarily the wildfires, we're work from home until at least January 4th. And I'm in IT, so our entire department is work from home. But obviously our branches are open, so there's branch personnel that have to be in the office. But basically all back office departments are in a work from home until at least January. It hasn't been decided, announced yet, but it's being talked about that we'll extend work from home. We had the flexibility in IT to work from home already, but it was most everybody had to be in the office. So it was not that it was a bad thing, but it was just not kind of part of the culture. The culture was to be in the office. I think that's going to change after all this.
So first of all, look at the perimeter acres of this. 141,510 acres. That's crazy. Even 237 miles around that whole thing is crazy. So Gary, you know, in your position, given that you are the guru, the czar of business intelligence and data analytics at your organization, you know, your particular position would require a lot of collaboration. One thing I was wondering if you could confirm or deny for me is, I'm hearing that as I talk to different credit unions in this space, doing our consulting, as we try to help people sort of navigate this, that they feel like while we were on this path culturally to a more collaborative environment around Agile, and Gary's a PMP, he's got incredible project management skills, that it's kind of falling apart a little bit now that people are working from home because they're falling back on their own ways of not sort of following the collaborative efforts that were sort of built up. Is that another outcome of this? And what I mean by that is where I may have taken the time to contact Gary about this new thing I'm going to do and it's not big projects. It's not going to be like changing out home banking. It's going to be more about something middle-sized where they feel as though somebody, you know, like, hey, this is a $10,000 project. It may seem like a $10,000 project, but without talking to Gary, it could be a $50,000 project. You just don't know. But they're sort of back to that mode. We're hearing that a little bit. Are you seeing that given what, you know, your spot in the trading space?
Yeah, there's, especially with the wildfires, there's a lot of collaboration for support with credit unions helping out. There are credit unions, I saw a CU Times story, I think this morning, where Clackamas Federal Credit Union, which is in that Clackamas County zone, they have members that just started showing up in their parking lot with trailers and actual animals, you know, like livestock animals. And the credit union, you know, help feed them.
Oh, wow.
Let them stay for free in their parking lot if it's in a safe area. The hard part is these wildfires have just multiplied, and a place that was safe yesterday may not be safe tomorrow.
Yeah, and where you keep going.
Yeah, what we need is the rain that's coming, and it's supposed to rain pretty heavy tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, and we're hoping that that's really going to dampen. It's not going to put them all out, but it's going to help. There was a little bit of a shower yesterday, so the air quality today is a little bit better, but it's still, you really shouldn't be going outside. It's still really bad here.
Yeah, it's a good thing you went to Hawaii.
I really wish I was there right now. I was there a year ago, and I wish I was there now.
So Mike put up the story that that Gary was talking about. And Gary, just also in terms of internal collaboration at the credit union, you know, from other departments coming to you, do you find that's less or more given the work from home?
It's more. We use Teams, and luckily we had that in place before all this started. And so it's just basically our communication tool. You know, we still do email as well, but anybody can set up a meeting quickly on Teams, and there are scheduled meetings. I have weekly meetings with my team where we talk about issues, and they, you know, people reach out to everybody. I'll give you an example. So last Friday, we had heard that there was some ATM fraud that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a request at 4:30 in the afternoon to run a report. We wanted to make a decision if we needed to lower our daily limits at the ATMs. And that request obviously came to my team. It came from our operations department. I saw it come in. I immediately contacted the AVP of operations and talked with her. And quickly it became, you know, clear that it was important that we get this data, because we had a decision, an important business decision that needed to be made that could affect not only from the wildfires, but from COVID. We raised the ATM limits during COVID. We ran the report, and it determined that, or it showed that it would affect too many of our members. A lot of our members were taking out a lot of cash on a daily basis. And so we chose not to decrease the limits, even though there was this potential fraud, that there's a fraud ring or something in the Northwest right now that another credit union lost a bunch of money. So we are collaborating with other credit unions and talking to each other, not only through news stories, but we'll reach out to other credit unions to offer help and to discuss things similar to these calls every week. I've been on these calls every week, and it's been very helpful. And I've taken information back to my team internally and to other departments with topics that we discuss, security topics, you know, stuff like that we've talked about.
Yeah, just real quick too. Have you gotten any reports of homes that are assets of yours in the sense of your loans that are no longer, and how are you guys handling that?
I know we've gotten a lot of calls with a lot of members that have been that had to evacuate, and some of them have lost their homes, and they're just in desperation. We've posted on our website an update, and if you need help, please contact us. We have emergency loans that we can get to you right away. I talked with our contact center AVP, and she was telling me that the stories are just heartbreaking. The members that are calling, they don't know what to do.
I'm telling you, you should go out. Here's my suggestion. Take this back to management. I'm not being funny.
Okay.
Go out and buy like 100 RVs and rent them or sell them or lease them, because here's the problem. It used to be in the pandemic that you could go somewhere else, like a hotel, or you at least have work to go to during the day. The home was where we're supposed to be, and now you can't be there. And so you can't live in your car. I'm telling you, RV sales, man, I think you should pile them up, get a bunch of them. You could lease them, buy them back from them, do whatever, make a deal with, I don't know, Camping World, Lazy Days, somebody. But it seems like that's an obvious because what they're going to do is, once their home is, this happened out here, and Gary, you and I were talking back then, Kevin, I know, and Lawson, we were talking back then, but my home was in jeopardy. I was evacuated. There was a huge fire here in Colorado. We lost about a couple hundred homes, and it got up to the edge of where I lived at the time. And when I went over and looked at that area, it was like the moon. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. Matter of fact, we worked with one of the credit union employees from one of the credit unions here. Her son, who was deployed, came back to us and said, "We had a ring. I have my engagement ring. It was in the drawer downstairs. I didn't tell anybody." So we sifted through all the stuff and we found it. It was a really cool story. Wow. And it was still perfect because it was white gold. Turned out the heat didn't get enough to kill it. But But the point is what I saw when people were building back is they would pull up these RVs onto the property and live there while they were putting the house back together. Seems like that would be something that would be really beneficial to Craig. And the other thing is loans are a problem right now. I don't know where they'll go for temporary housing, and so just thinking out loud. That's my
That's a
thought.
really good suggestion, and I'll bring it up to leadership. And
Yeah.
maybe they've already started talking about that. I don't know. I do know that there's other credit unions that have been talking about things like that. So we
Yeah, maybe
will,
get together with a bunch of them and work out some sort of deal.
we'll
just-
definitely look into that for sure.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they got to have some place they can be. And
Right.
before, you could at least go stay with some family and know you'd be gone for a few days. But if they're elderly and you feel like you're putting them in jail, I mean, the pandemic complicates this to a level that, I started thinking about recently, and it hurt my head. So
Yeah, no, that's a really good suggestion. I know there's Clackamas Town Center Mall, which is in kind of the heart of Clackamas County. Huge mall, one of the biggest malls in the Portland area. Their parking lot has been dedicated an evacuation zone because it's
for all RVs.
and there's tons of RVs there. There's tons of people with farm animals and their animals. There are county fairgrounds in different parts that they're doing that. They're housing people. I don't know if they're providing. What I've heard is they're allowing them to put their tent or their RV, which tent, the air is so horrible here. I wouldn't want to be staying in a tent right now. If they can't go to
You
a
got to be
hotel.
in something that has a filter with air conditioning, which
Yeah.
is why I think the RV is the best of the options. But I'm sorry for your members. I'm sorry for, it seems like one thing after another for a lot of folks. And now we're going to have, a category 1 may not seem like much, but I'd rather a category 4 that flows through real fast than a category 1 that sits. And Tom will speak to that given Superstorm Sandy, which is exactly what it did, and just dump water, especially in that area of the country. We're going to have another crisis, very similar.
Right. Well, that's the crisis. Once we do start getting rain, they're worried about landslides.
Yeah,
Landslides,
because it creates such, loosens all the dirt and vegetation that was holding things in place. That was one of the things that surprised me most for the hurricanes I went through in Florida was the trees that were loosened. It wasn't that it knocked trees down, it just, their roots didn't have a hold anymore and they just fall over. Right. And to this day, you can go to golf courses and still see, they're knocked down and they sort of regrew in a way that's there. So that's good to hear that, you guys are still, seeing that collaborative environment. We're hearing, some people are taking a little bit of advantage who don't have the Teams platforms and things like that. I highly recommend Teams or something that will get you to where you're communicating. That's sort of most I have to in most of these organizations. I think those are table stakes anymore for working in the world that we work in, particularly, I think that chat and collaborative projects like that have taken the place of workflow in some cases. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of that. I also think out of every crisis, there's opportunity. And I think the opportunity there is this, again, what you do right now will be remembered forever by those members. Those credit unions that are letting people stay in their parking lot and bringing them food, they're never, ever going to forget that, ever. Yeah. And you'll have a customer for life. And if you could do something more than that, bring RVs, it doesn't take much, but that's our charter, right? That's what we're supposed to do. So, so keeping on with the work from home topic, let me just look through my people here.
John.
Yes.
Thanks for all the compliments. The check's in the mail, by the way.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll look for it. Anybody else out there want to speak to their work from home program that's been looking at this? It's on the call. Maybe Jim. Jim, you're out in Wyoming, I would imagine, and you're a smaller credit union. Do you mind speaking for just a minute?
We only have myself. I work from home more than anybody else does. We're so small that almost all of our employees have some level of member contact in person. So we have a couple of our operations VP and who also does item processing and things like that. She works from home. Our accountant works from home some. That's mainly because of childcare issues. But really most of the rest of our staff really do have to come in to provide, member service. On a similar note, we've required masks and social distancing since we reopened in
Mhm.
June. We have screens not only at the teller line, but at everybody's desk as well, to try and protect people in that way. So that's what we're doing.
So, Jim, I heard a story. I was going to share it with you. I'll share it with everybody. So, a credit union, and I'm not going to share where yet, but what had happened was they had an employee who got sick, knew they were sick, and purposely came to work because they were worried about losing their job. Once they found out this person was sick, they, of course, reprimanded this person, but everybody in the branch had to be quarantined. Well, someone in the branch happened to be connected to the health, to the local, not the local, but the government health authority. And then the health authority came in and wanted records of every person that had come into that branch that the teller or that person had come in contact with. That freaked me out.
Wow.
Because can you imagine, and a lot of our members are older, they really trust us. And you get the call from the healthcare people doing the contact tracing and they go, oh, by the way, you were exposed recently, and they have to tell them where, I guess, because they got the information. And it was Aspire. It was the Aspire COVID branch, which he doesn't have branches, so that's why I picked on him. But I can't, but I got to think that's coming, because if they're doing it, others are going to think to do that. And we can easily pull up, and Jim, you could do this in 2 seconds, right? A rep in and said every single person that this teller saw during that exposure period.
Wow, I'd have to contact a lawyer about that too.
I think they did, and they had to give it up. It's like,
Really?
it'd be like if you exposed them to imagine you exposed them to like some other dangerous thing. Yeah, like
Right.
radon. Like, let's say it was a huge radon link in your branch. You wouldn't have a choice but to tell them, supposedly.
Wow.
I don't know. I can't see how you wouldn't have to tell them.
And if that happened to us, we'd be gone in a week. We'd be merged
which
into
is
somebody
why-
much larger,
Mhm.
and we'd be, our credit union would be gone if something like that happened.
Right. So that's why I'm saying we need to be really strict on people that are thinking that they have to come into work. Tom, you were going to say something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we've obviously we give people very liberal sick leave right now, even if they think they've been exposed. We don't count it against their sick leave, during the period they're either waiting for a test result or under quarantine. So we've strongly encourage people not to come, even if they think they might be sick, not even to the point where they are sick.
Well, and it could be someone who didn't do anything wrong, that they were
Sure.
just being normal, and it could still happen. What were you going to say, Tom? I'm sorry.
I think there's two different facets to it. One thing is that if we found out that someone had come into our office, whether it's a branch or the regular office, operations office, that had been exposed, it's one thing for us to reach out to those people, members, vendors, whoever it might be, that could have been exposed. But the second part is, what's our obligation legally to tell the authorities who had come into our office so they could do tracing? We could easily reach out to each of those members through phone call, email, text, and say, hey, you've been exposed. Please reach out to, here's the COVID tracing authority. But when we're now disclosing NPPI and confidential member information, banking information, does it violate HIPAA rules? Does it violate Gramm-Leach-Bliley? There's so many different issues at play here that I would not initially, we would take the initiative to reach out to those people ourselves, absolutely. But I would be hesitant to just give them to somebody that walked in the door. It's like a sheriff, you need a subpoena.
Yeah.
A legal document that's got CYA written on it for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the point here was the healthcare also, because this is a big spidering thing, right? So it's great that you reach out to them, but then you'd have to tell them, and oh, by the way, you're going to get a call, because what they want to do is now find out how all those people
Right.
came in contact with, and you're not going to do that. And so this is a can of worms
Mhm.
that's already been opened in other areas, right? Like dental, they're required to do that. But there are other areas, like you go to Ace Hardware, it's going to be, if you paid in cash, you're not on the list. They're not going to really know if Tom was really there or not. And even with the credit card information, it's hard to, you still don't have phone numbers and things like that. But just something to think about. I can see this coming. It's just a matter of time, because what's going to happen is, as we close in on it and get better with it, and Tom, you were exactly saying this earlier, we're going to want to be better about tracking it, and they're going to start to close those lines. They're going to want to be even more restrictive and define these people, and basically snuff it out as soon as it happens.
Right.
And they're going to, if there isn't a mandate for it, there may likely be one. And yeah, it's crazy stuff, but it also kind of makes sense. It's hard to argue. I mean, it's like that thing, Tom, you and I've had this discussion over a couple of beers before, where I said, hey, if I could look at your data and tell you that Mike Lawson's a member, I could look at Mike Lawson and go, man, he keeps buying all these bananas, and he's also buying like all this other stuff. I would, based on his purchase history and my algorithms, I would say he's got colon cancer. Do I tell him? I mean, that's what Target did. They basically deduced someone was pregnant.
Right.
So these ethical issues with the data are coming, but I think they may be pushed a lot more forward given what we're seeing, because it's, our rights end where my rights end where Tom's rights, my rights begin where Tom's rights end as a human. That's why I can't not wear pants. Or underwear, out and about. I mean, in my house, I can do what I want, but that's, it's kind of that same concept that we're seeing, and it's really pushing the ethics of who we are. But I like your point. Anybody else want to comment on that, or has heard anything like that or seen it?
The other complicating factor with that is that I'm hearing scammers and hackers are reaching out to people and telling them that you've been infected and trying to get your personal information.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's brilliant. Yeah.
So that complicates it even more, because you've got these scumbags out there that are trying to scam people during this difficult time.
Wow.
I did a study in New York City recently, and they found out that 2/3 of the people that were approached by a tracer refused to answer. 2/3 said, no, I'm not going to tell you who I've been with, where I've been. Okay, you say I've been exposed. Great, thank you very much. But I'm not going to tell you. It's private information.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I was contacted.
Yeah.
I would have to do some serious analysis, and they'd have to answer some questions before I would provide them with any information at all.
Oh, well, your legal that would go, to me, that should go all the way up to the board. But it also depends on the laws of your state. I mean, there's so many layers to this that aren't even funny. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but they contacted me about, like, what do you think about this? And I'm just going to let it lie at that. But yeah. But it's no different than you could argue it either way. You could argue it both ways. You can argue it to Tom's point, absolutely. And then the other thing is the states are starting to bring on these apps. And so the apps are going to tell you if you were in contact. So theoretically, if I use the app and I go into Unitas branch B, and the teller eventually says they have it, I will then know where, at least. I won't know who. It doesn't tell you who, but it tells you where. And this is Apple and Google. They are both providing these apps, and states seem to be jumping on with one or the other. And I don't know if you've downloaded these apps, but they're literally tracking you, and it started from an MIT approach that was out there that would let you know if you were in contact. So it's just wild stuff to think about. So that was my moment for everybody. Now I see Tom, he's just kind of like shaking a little bit.
Well, I downloaded the latest Android 11 onto my phone the other day, and it's got the COVID-19 tracking, and it indicates that it's off. But is it really?
Yeah. I could tell you that. I you know what? I'll take a look. I usually will check things like that. I like to see what it's letting out. I have a couple Androids that are just sitting on the sniffer that I watch what goes in and out to see what it tells me it's doing and what it's really doing.
Curious to know if they, if they're just graded out for my benefit or if it's actually off, or is it running in deep background and
yeah. And it usually will tell you that. Android's better about that. Just to give you one other thought out there. So this was one that came up as well. We talked back to working from home. So if I'm working from home and my laptop's right here in front of me, you can't see it. I could lift it up so you can see it for a second, but it's right here in front of me. And if there was a camera on the wall behind me, and this is the new hack, right? This is how they're getting people's banking information. They're not hacking into the computers. They're grabbing, people just have cameras. They have pet cameras. I don't know about you, I got like 50. I'm more monitored than I would be in jail. There are more cameras on me than if I had a cell at, Rikers, right? And so
you got to talk to your wife about that.
I know. It's a whole different thing. That's like we went shooting the other day. She hasn't shot in 30 years, and she put a smiley face in the thing. The range safety guy looked at me and went, "Maybe you shouldn't give her a gun." But point is that there are other factors that are outside. Like you can lock down that PC all you want, but if they've just got one camera, so now we have something else you got to tell them. So one thing I'm going to encourage people to do, similar to what we talked about with Roger Grimes last week, is start putting together a work from home security thing that you make them sign that says, hey, I'm at least this good. And that way, like for example, they may not tell you they're stealing their neighbor's Wi-Fi, or sharing it. Maybe the neighbor knows, but that's still not good for you. You don't want them, sharing someone else's Wi-Fi because all those packets are going over there. My neighbor, I don't know if you guys ever, one of my favorite pastimes is to go places and look at Wi-Fi, like the names of Wi-Fi. If you ever want to have fun, just go to an apartment complex, break out your phone and hit like you're going to add a new Wi-Fi and look at all the names. Like my neighbor's name is ARG Wi-Fi. And then one is Guess We Will for his Wi-Fi. Another one says FBI surveillance ban. I see that one a lot. But point is that if they're sharing someone else's Wi-Fi, you need to know. There's so many things. And so one of the things I'm going to do as part of this blog is put together what my thoughts are on some of those specs. So that'll be coming out soon. Glenn Servati and I are working on that into a podcast and a blog. With that, unless somebody else has any comments, I am going to close this out. Mike, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything coming up for you?
Well, since I have colon cancer, I'm gonna go get a colonoscopy. So just reminded
actually,
me.
Kevin,
Thank you for
Kevin
that.
does those, but you'll have to go outside to get it. But Sarber does those.
I'll wear a mask.
It is Wednesday, so you're good. Yeah, he does them on Wednesdays. He told me you watched a YouTube video. You're fine.
Oh, good. All right, we're good to go.
Plus, he still has the rubber gloves left over from when he was,
From the last one.
yeah, so it's all good.
All right, good to know. Thanks, Kevin.
But I'm not kidding about that. That will come. That kind of data is going to happen.
Oh yeah. All kidding aside, you're right.
Algorithms like that.
So I want to say one thing in all seriousness. I want to tell you how valuable I find these town halls. Early on, some of the information everyone shared about some of the reports to pull to look for different things from ACH, who are the members affected, very, very helpful. And then more recently, as you've had Brett King, Chris Skinner, and Ron, and then Roger Grimes on. I mean, these are guys that are like, geek heroes. People that are really pushing, advancing things. And the fact that you got them on and we were able to really talk to them directly in this small, intimate setting is really, really impressive and very, very helpful for everyone. So for the group, I want to say thank you for doing this and for who knew these people even knew you and would even agree come on board.
Yeah,
and exceptional to have, even these discussions, but folks like them coming on board to talk with us for like an hour. It's really, really good.
Yeah, we're truly blessed. And one of the reasons they come is because they like talking to you.
I knew it was something beyond you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and in all seriousness, they really do appreciate getting to talk to the end users. And they really like that. Roger loved it. Roger came back and said, I'll be on anytime you want me to. So did Dave Birch. Birch is not someone you just get. You're pointing out a great point. I mean, these are guys, if you hired them to speak to your board or your conference, you'd be looking at 15, 20K.
Yeah.
But they like what we're doing. They get it. They love the Cranium model. and they're here to help. And so, but I really appreciate you guys like Gary, Andrew, you, Julie, Kevin, everyone that comes on, Jim, that provides input, because the collaboration is key, and that's what's going to drive it forward. So, and we'll keep doing them as long as people keep coming. I'll just keep inviting friends. I got some surprises coming that some bigger stars and people that are going to show up that'll be fun. So
Excellent.
but the reason they come is for you guys, not me. So I'm really
I
thankful.
agree 100%, Tom. I agree as well. I find these very valuable, and I take things back. John always has a good suggestion, and I always take it back. And we may or may not act on it, but at least it spurs a conversation. So I really find a lot of value in it.
Well, if you guys come up with stuff, don't be afraid to share. And like I said, we want to keep these as interactive as possible, so there'll be more to come. And Mike is, I think, next week will be Brian. Actually, next week, I think we have Bradley Metrock from the Voice folks talking about.
Oh, cool.
He's really tight with Alexa and some of what's going on with the government with that. So we'll talk about that. Seniors
Exciting.
and what's happening with Alexa. And then we'll get Brian on, who is former financial advisor to Obama in the White House, and to talk a little bit more about the crisis and preparing for that, and also the stock market. So, and if you guys got ideas for guests, Tom, you know a lot of people too. Always happy to have them on. Just let us know.
Great. Thanks, John.
Yeah, tell us what you want to hear.
Take care.
All right, guys.